All right. Well, here's something that I really didn't understand or I didn't appreciate as much was learning the rules of the road. You learn how to drive a car. You got to go ahead and get your permit, right? You got to go ahead and do all these classes. Where I grew up, where you just get in a car and drive and then hope to pray to God that you pass. But in this particular case, there's a lot of times when we're on the road, and how many times have you had a car come too close? How many times have you been somewhere and maybe the road wasn't paved correctly? And you think to yourself, I'm glad I avoided that. Well, in a lot of cases, there's people who don't avoid it, and they have to then going to find an attorney and understand bike law. And these are processes or points that Ken and the team have brought up so we can understand it a little bit better, and we have an attorney who's here today to help us with that. Please put your hands together for Miss Cassady Sakura Davidson. And if I can't say this real quick for her, she subscribes to the same saying, and I love this because Ken is always saying it, man. We believe that we are stronger as riders together than with a mindset that we are separate and apart. And getting the information that she's going to give us right now might actually help us in a lot of different ways. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. I feel like I know everybody, which is great. I just want to do a full disclaimer at the beginning. This is kind of the lawyer in me. Everything I'm about to say is not to be taken as legal advice. And if you do have legal questions, please come up to me or reach out to me in private. That's the appropriate thing to do. So I probably am not going to do like, I'm going to take questions now, because it's going to open up a Pandora box that I can't put back in. So having said that, I thought I would, and also I'm licensed in California, for all of you to know. I know we have a lot of people from the East Coast. If you get in a collision in California, yes, you can call me, for sure. But, it's not, I cannot give legal advice outside of California, okay? So just full disclaimer right there. Now that I'm done with that, I want to start with, I just thought I would first share how I became what I am, a bike attorney, right? Because everybody's always like, what do you do? I'm a bike attorney. What? Is that a specialty? It is to me. So I grew up in Texas and Japan, and I want to kind of build on what I've been listening to. I feel like I've heard a lot of words about body, health, intuitive, know your body, right? That's also physical and mental, right? So I want to kind of build on that a little bit. So I grew up riding bikes in Japan as a kid. I started riding a bike probably when I was in kindergarten, and my dad was like, hey, let's ride a bike. And I was like, okay. And so that's how I started out. That's what I'm trying to do with my kids, because I appreciated that about my family, is trying to stay me active, right? I did have a lot of energy, so that was probably what they were trying to do, was let's get this kid really tired so they won't bother us. So, yes, but that's what I want, that's what I like for myself, and that's what I want for my kids and everybody. I want everybody to stay healthy, active. It means so much to us, right? And it's really, you can't buy it. You can't go and, hey, I want 3 pounds off my body. No, you're not doing that. Although they might say they will do that. So I grew up in Japan riding bikes. At some point, unicycles were really popular, so we started going to our elementary school on unicycles, me and my girlfriends. And so that's kind of, I was always on wheels. And then I moved to the States, back to Texas when I was in middle school. And my parents were like, okay, go to school by bike. And I'm sure many of you may have gone to school by bike growing up. I feel like that has changed over the years. Even for me, comparing what my parents have told me and then remembering my childhood and then looking at my kids, we're chauffeurs now, we're expected to drive them everywhere because, oh, that's so dangerous. You're going to get killed. You're going to get killed. You're going to get kidnapped, killed. It's like, oh my gosh, what world do we live in, We got to have a little bit of trust in each other. But there's probably a reason why it turned out like that. And I don't think I have to go in deep about, how bad the statistics are right now. I just always hear like the statistics are really bad right now. People are getting killed on the road, whether they're walking, biking, even in cars. I always like to point that out because everybody's always like, cycling is so dangerous. I'm like, yeah, do you drive? Like, come on, like, I don't, and so what I'm trying to say is I start commuting to school on my bike in Texas, and I've been threatened so many times with a gun, I got a gun in my pickup. It's like, okay, you go your way, I'm gonna go to school. And so that was me in Texas, and I stuck to it. I commuted by bike, middle school, high school, and I lived in different parts of Texas, and I don't have to get into that, but it's very different. Texas is big, so it's like, culturally speaking, it's like, oh, Houston is cool. Austin, okay, you're kind of hipster, I guess. And then, Panhandle, whoa. And so I've lived all over and kind of experienced different roads, different people, different ways of driving, different rules, different laws. But that's all of us, right? We've been walking since we were babies. Like, it's in us. We know how to walk, we know how to run, we know how to bike, we know how to drive. So what I want to say is trust your instincts. Like, the law is the law, and there's good law, there's bad law. But when it comes to safety, I always tell people, try to stick to your comfort zone because we each have different comfort zones. And I'm not saying, like always stay in that comfort zone because there are moments where we have to challenge those barriers and say, I'm getting out of this comfort zone, I'm going to challenge myself. But I'm talking about like the safety comfort zone, and so don't let peer pressure take over you. Do what you think is right. Like that, we each have an instinct and we have it for a reason. So trust yourself, trust your writing, trust your abilities, and I know he was talking about injury prevention, but talking about collision prevention, I think a lot of it is intuitive, So know the law, of course, but also, trust your instincts, okay? So when you do get in a collision, talk about that a little bit. Where should I start? So one thing wherever you are, don't ever assume that, okay, there's a witness, they're helpful. They're kind of helping me, it seems. They're saying the right things. Oh, they're talking to the ambulance people, the first responders, they're talking to the police officer. Great, I'm just gonna chill here and relax. Next day, week goes by. You get the traffic collision report. You're like, what? What's their name? What's their number? Where's my witness? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is if you're in that situation and you do encounter somebody who seems like a good witness, and again, this is where I say it's case by case, so there's no right or wrong that applies to every single situation, but if you're able to, physically and mentally able to, get their name and number independently. Don't rely on other people or the police, or don't ever assume that that information that you really need is going to be in that report, okay? So that's just my 2 cents right there. What else? Let me look at my cheat sheet.
We always tell them rule number 1, nice and corporate, not the accident investigations, never apologize. That's something you get. That's, I'm so sorry. That's all you have to say.
Oh, as a cyclist.
That's
Yeah.
the person involved in an accident. Once you apologize, you're apologizing for what you just did. So never say, even for a little bit. I've actually had a guy that's actually probably my employee's fault, but the Uber driver apologized profusely, and that's all I need to know. Justin, what'd you hear? I heard him apologize to my employee like 3 times. It's okay. And
Yeah. But speaking of apologies, I also want to point out, there might be things said and spoken at the moment, but anything that's not recorded and everything that's not repeated again under oath, sometimes people lie. Like, I also want to be honest about that. Like, you may have encountered situations where, like, oh yeah, they totally said it wasn't my fault, and then they talk to their own insurance company and they're like saying, oh, the cyclist is at fault completely. So to combat that, there's very little things you can do, but legally speaking, you can always ask somebody and say, can I take your recorded statement with my phone, And if they're willing to submit to that, hey, you got good evidence. So also, Ken wanted me to bring this up, but a lot of you, how many of you drive a car or own a car? All right. And I'm sure this will be a repeat for many of you, but for those who don't know, I want to say it in a little bit more actually. There is a coverage under your auto policy called uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist coverage. I'm not an insurance agent, I'm an attorney, but I can tell you that this coverage has helped my clients many, 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 many times. That's a lot of minis. Yes, and what are those times? Uninsured motorists. A lot of people right now are driving without insurance because they can't pay the premium, It's illegal in California, but they're doing it anyway, and getting away with it. That's the reality. And so when you get hit by a driver who does not have any liability coverage or assets, that's usually, comes hand in hand, you're screwed basically because, just hope that you have good health insurance that's going to help you heal. That's, and don't expect more than that. However, if you have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, and this also applies in a hit and run situation, okay? Somebody hits and runs away, so you can't even find their insurance. If you report to your own insurance carrier, then this coverage may kick in and cover for the costs of medical expenses and pain and suffering, that sort of thing. And there's also another coverage I wanted to bring up because I'm starting to see some changes here a little bit, and it might help you shop for a better or good auto insurance. There's a coverage called medical payment coverage, and this one's a little less known because it kicks in basically to cover your medical expenses to reimburse you for out-of-pocket expenses. So let me give you an example. I get hit, I call an ambulance. That's already $2,000 in California. I have to go to the ER and get an x-ray, and I get a bill at my home for $3,000. So I'm already having to pay $5,000, okay? Look at my coverage. Oh, I have medical payment coverage, yes. So I call up my own insurance and say, here's my bill, here's the medical records, please reimburse me, or go ahead and pay them directly because I'm now getting a bill for $5,000 and I don't like that, And so this may kick in, but you want to make sure that there's no cycling exclusion. I'm starting to see this in some policies. And so you might have purchased medical payment thinking, this will really help me, if I get hit and I'm walking or on a bike, or because that's when you tend to have more serious injuries, right? Because our bodies are not encaged in full metal. And so if you're purchasing this medical payment coverage, make sure to check with your agent or the insurance company and ask them, is there a cycling exclusion? Because if there is, you might want a better policy that says, it's not going to ask whether you are on a bicycle or not, and it's still going to kick in. So read your policy, although I know many of us are like, it's too long, it doesn't make any sense, but it does help to know what coverage you have, including the uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, which a lot of people turn down because it's an extra cost to your premium, okay? So that's something that is that's very helpful. kind of going along with what they were talking about knowing your body, knowing your body. When you get hit, I always tell my clients, don't assume you're okay. You know, you might feel that way at this moment. You know, you just got hit, your adrenaline is kicking in and you're feeling things, but don't assume immediately that you're okay. Going back to the apology, I don't know many people, at least that I ride with, that are like going to be like, sorry. But I do know people who might say, I'm okay. Right? I think that's more common. And so you're not okay, right? On many levels, you're not okay. You're first and foremost, your bicycle is cracked in half, like, sometimes that's people's biggest concern. My bike, I don't care my body, my bike, like, get money for my bike now. I get it. That's probably the most obvious, and we are attached to our bikes in a very special way, let's say. But, this kind of goes along with what we've been building on. Know your body, know your range of motion, know what your body is capable of doing, right? Because if you don't know your body well, how can you heal after a traumatic event like this? It's very difficult, and life is happening. We have work, we have family, we have all these things going on. Take time for yourself to heal. That's what I always tell people too, is I don't think I need to go to the doctor. I'm just gonna PT myself, physical therapy. Like, no, you should probably go see a doctor if you're having pain. So that part I always emphasize, because our body is priceless, and no matter what the liability policy is of the driver or yourself, it doesn't matter. When am I the happiest in each case? I'll be honest with you. When am I the happiest? I'm happiest when my clients say, I'm 100% better, Cassady. That's what I care about. Like, that's the most important part. Like, you're 100% better after a week? Like, that's awesome. Like, you're the best client. No, I'm kidding. I won't say that. But that's what I emphasize to people. Take time to heal, because it is traumatic, and don't think that you're better just because. And sometimes you have to question the doctors too, because sometimes, like, I have Kaiser right now, and they just want me out of the office ASAP. They're like, get out. And so sometimes you also have to be your own advocate in a healthcare situation, and maybe we've all been there, because people tend to not want to spend, time on ourselves. And we need to be an advocate and say, no, I'm paying a premium, or through tax money, or just being alive here, I should deserve care. Get me the care now. Get me this, get me that. Like, you got to be an advocate, or else I've seen many of my clients just get pushed around by the healthcare system and been told, like, oh, you're good, you're good. And then later they get an MRI, they have a tear in the shoulder. Okay, so know your body. Knowing your body leads to, and caring for your body. Knowing your body and caring for your body leads to being able to tackle these issues that come up during healing after an injury, and being able for me to properly assess what I need to do. And I can't do that. I'm not the one going in the doctor's office, So that's what I focus on, is making sure that people get the proper care, which leads into my maybe final point, which is, if you haven't already, figure out your healthcare situation. And I can't emphasize this enough. And maybe it's not you. Maybe it's your family member that needs to hear this, especially younger people. Because when I came to the States with my husband, like, we were clueless. We were like, what? In Japan, they automatically give us health insurance. What is this? Like, what? What do you mean sign up for health insurance? So I I know. And so it's a very different system, and it's different every state, different laws, but make sure that, you know, we're riding bikes, we're walking, we're being active in the world, even being stationary in our home. Anything can happen. So have a health plan of when something does happen. And that way, you know, I sometimes do have people come to me and they're hurt, but they're just scrambling to try to find a provider or trying to find health insurance. Don't be that person. You know, no, I'm not going to say like know which doctor to go to. I'm not going to go that far, but at least have health insurance, you know, of some kind that you've applied to and qualify. And yeah, so those are kind of my, I guess you could say, tips and key points that I wanted to share with everybody today, and I hope everybody found it very helpful. So.
Once again, give a round of applause for Cassady Sakura Davidson. She's a partner at the Davidson Bike Law Practice.